We're going to file today's episode under the broad category of let's work smarter, not harder. As creatives, we tend to overcomplicate things. We feel like we want people to get that perfect experience or get exactly what it is that they're looking for. And so what we end up doing is we create a whole bunch of different kinds of offers, or we try and sell the same thing by talking about it a whole bunch of different ways and presenting it in a whole bunch of different ways. And we expend a lot of our creativity on that marketing piece, right? We are just trying to get our names and our information in front of the broadest net of people possible so that some number of those, some percentage of those people who come across us book with us at whatever our rate is. So let's say that you charge $1,000 for your service and you spend, let's say 80% of your time, because I'm guessing that that's not too much of an exaggeration. You spend 80% of your time out there trying to find the people who are then going to book you. So the 20% of your time is actually spent servicing clients. I am all about making running a profitable business as simple as possible. And sometimes that's using systems and strategies and coming up with new ways to present your offer and all that sort of stuff. And that can be great. But I think it's important to note that every once in a while, we have to look at what we're offering and make sure that we are maximizing what we offer to the greatest extent possible, that we are sort of squeezing every drop of goodness out of what it is that we've already done. Now, I've talked about this in the past when it comes to repurposing content, so that you're not having to recreate the wheel all the time in that sector of your business. But today I want to flip that on its head and invite you to think about the ways that you can maximize the sales that you get so that you are making as much money as possible and giving your clients the best experience possible by introducing some opportunities for them to spend a little bit more money with you along the way.
Welcome to This Can't Be That Hard. My name is Anami Tonkin, and I help photographers run profitable, sustainable businesses that they love. Each week on the podcast, I cover simple, actionable strategies and systems that photographers at every level of experience can use to earn more money in a more sustainable way. Running a photography business doesn't have to be that hard. You can do it, and I can show you how.
So before I start getting into the nuts and bolts of how to create these various kinds of additional forms of revenue, streams of revenue, I just want to preface the entire conversation with what I hope is evident fact that all of this should come from a place of service. This is not just a let's milk all of our clients for every single penny that they're worth kind of a concept. When I was doing in-person sales, there were a couple of people, educators that I learned from who kind of had that mentality, and it never sat right with me. They would say, it doesn't really matter if you think that somebody is kind of going overboard. If they are in that buying frenzy, you just have to continue to feed that fire until it's all spent. There's this phrase don't leave money on the table. And I just want to kind of walk that back a little bit and say, I agree that when it comes to running a business, we are here to make money and we should be taking opportunities to, invite people to purchase from us. But we always want to check ourselves and make sure that we are doing this, again, from a place of service where we believe that everything that we add to this person's purchase list is going to increase the value of their experience with you. And I know that that is not a difficult concept for most of us. I think, in fact, for most of us, we get in our own way and say things to ourselves like, well, they've already spent a lot of money. I want to even ask them to spend more money because that's not right. And that can be a disservice to our clients. But for maybe the few people out there who are the real hustlers in the bunch, and that can be fun and sort of its own thing. If you find yourself, thinking about dreaming up ways to squeeze extra money out of people, and you don't think that it's going to actually improve their overall experience, I would just invite you to kind of take a breath, take a step back, and recognize that in a business like ours, the number one thing that you should be looking for at the end of a session is that that person feels like they got great value for whatever amount of money they spent with you. So if someone spent $100, they should feel like they got $200 worth of value out of that. And if they spent, $10,000, it should just feel great on that end as well. It should not feel like, oh, I just got taken for everything I'm worth. So with that said, I want to introduce a handful of concepts that I know that you've interacted with and you may have actually thought about before, but I want to reframe these concepts within the context of your photography business, because photographers don't often kind of make use of these very well developed and well-worn sales techniques that are used in all kinds of businesses that we interact with every day. The first concept that I want to explore is the concept of the tripwire offer. So a tripwire offer is a paid offer that's made to someone after they sign up for something that's free. So if you have ever gone and downloaded a free guide and then, gotten a pop-up, and this could have come from me because I have some of these in my education business where it says, hey, before you go, since you're interested in this thing, you might also be interested in this other thing. The first thing you signed up for was free, but this other thing costs a little bit of money, but I thought you might be interested. And then it goes on to tell you whatever that thing is. And you may never have signed up for one of those things before. You may have signed up for one of those things before. I certainly have. If they're done correctly, if a tripwire offer is set up in such a way that it is truly aligned with the free thing that the person has signed up for, it can be a very compelling argument. And the tripwire offer is sort of based around the same psychology, sales psychology, that all the different offers that I'm going to be talking to you about today, they're all kind of based in the same general psychology and psychological principle, which is the fact that by the time that someone gets to where they are already purchasing from you, or even already sharing their email address with you, they have already bought in to a certain degree. You have gained trust to a certain degree, and the opportunity might be there for them to go ahead and start to spend money with you. Or if they've already spent money with you, spend more money with you. So I don't love the name tripwire. That's what it's known as in sales and marketing circles. But basically it's saying if someone's willing to give you their email address, maybe they're also willing to purchase something on the small side from you. So in the photography world, I think about, maybe you have a freebie that's set up that you use to grow your email list, that sort of thing. Typically, the thing that you are offering for free, it's a guide, it's a checklist, it's a, some sort of value added product that you're willing to give someone in exchange for their email address. Typically, it addresses a particular problem for our ideal clients. That's what they should do because that's the best way to find your ideal clients, right? If you have one of those, and then you can think of something that sort of complements that you offer, either something that you already offer or something that you could offer that is on the lower end of the pricing scale, but does invite someone to purchase something from you, that would be where you could use a tripwire. Of all of these, I decided to present this first, namely because it sort of starts with the free offer and then takes it to a low cost upsell, if you will. But the tripwire, I also think, is probably the least utilized within the photography community, and probably for good reason. It doesn't necessarily, I was trying to think of examples. The best thing that I could think of is if, let's say, you're a brand photographer or a headshot photographer, and your free offer on your website is a guide to how to dress or how to do your makeup for a brand session or a headshot, then your Tripwire offer could be an invitation to book a headshot with you right there sort of within the thing. And maybe it involves some sort of discount or a bundle that you would normally sell for additional money. So maybe it's a print, or, if you typically do, your headshot clients get, let's say, 4 images from their session, and you say, if you book within the next 20 minutes, I'll increase the number of images that you get with your session by X number. That would be an opportunity for someone who is thinking about headshots, who's already on your website, and who already thinks that you are worth paying attention to enough to download whatever it is that you're offering. You're just looking to close the deal right then and there. Another example of this would be if you have an online course that you have built, and I did this back when I was focusing more on bringing in clients with newborns, where I created a mini course on how to photograph your newborn with your cell phone. And it was like a 30-minute video. And then I had a bunch of tips in terms of like software that people could use and photos. Like I had a photo list for each month of the baby's first year. So it was basic. It was not anything fancy. There was very little sort of glitz and glamour, but I offered that to people when they booked a first year package with me for free. So I assigned a dollar value to it. I don't know that I ever actually sold that course as a standalone product, but I used it as something that would sort of add value when someone was springing for one of my bigger packages. If I were still offering that course and I had a freebie on my website that had to do with newborn photography, et cetera, if someone signed up for the freebie, I might offer them the opportunity to purchase that. And let's say, for $29 or something like that. So not a ton of money, but once it's all set up and ready to go, that's passive income for you, right? So it's just giving people an opportunity to sort of move a little bit further down the sales pipeline with you. And of course, that also gives you some cash revenue, cash flow, whether or not it's a large amount. Okay, the next kind of offer that I want to present, and this is the one that I actually think most photographers might be using, is the bump offer. So a bump offer is a paid upgrade offered at the time of checkout. So before someone has put in their credit card information, there's typically like a checkbox or a toggle switch where they can turn the offer on or off. So it's built into your proposal or your invoice or whatever. And I say that I think that this is probably the most popular of these kinds of offers because I see a lot of photographers doing things like offering the upsell of, let's say, hair and makeup for a session, or a wardrobe consultation if that's not included in the price of the session. You can add additional time. I know a lot of certainly wedding photographers will offer like, this is my base package, and you can add time to that, and you do that at the time of checkout. In my own business, I use the bump offer in my proposal to give people the option to purchase a session that's on the weekend versus a weekday session. So I charge more money for weekend sessions because they're more limited and they're more popular, and they can sort of toggle that on or off right there in the context of their proposal. And then you could use a bump offer for a product pre-sale. The bump offer, as I said, I'm not going to belabor this because I feel like this is the one that most people are pretty familiar with in the context of photography. The thing that I want to point out is that a bump offer needs to be very carefully considered, because what you don't want a bump offer to do is to derail the sale before it goes through, right? So somebody's there, they're at the checkout point, they are making the decision whether or not to work with you. You do not want to confuse them with a whole bunch of like add-ons that they don't, maybe they have questions about them, maybe they're not sure. If you stall somebody out at that point, it could be enough to mean that they like kind of bounce off that page and they say to themselves, okay, I'm going to come back to this later and I'll book with her later. And this is, I just have to think about this. They've already decided that they want to work with you, but because of the bump offer, they sort of do that thing where they like hesitate that can be the end of a sale. So if it's something super simple, super straightforward to me, like my clients know whether they want a weekend or a weekday session. That should not derail their decision to book with me one way or the other. Anything else, I would be pretty careful about making sure that I had talked to them about what that entails. They know exactly what it is so that all they need to do is say, yes, this does apply to me, or no, this doesn't apply to me. It should not be something that's like brand new and they're confused about it. So when I say that could be used to pre-sell a product, I just want to put a giant asterisk beside that to say, don't let that, be the thing that then makes them go into some sort of like decision tailspin. You can talk to them about that later, which brings me to the concept of an upsell. So a bump offer is something that they see before they check out. An upsell is kind of like a tripwire offer where they only see the offer after they've already purchased. Now, I have actually been sitting on this podcast topic for a while because the problem with talking about some of this stuff is that although there's lots of software out there that makes all of these things very easy to implement, photographers generally don't have that software in their arsenal, right? So the CRM that I use doesn't allow me to automate a process where once someone pays an invoice, they automatically get a time limited offer that I have set up as an upsell. However, in my education business, I use a piece of software called ThriveCart. It's a checkout software, and they make it super easy for me to set those things up. Bump offers, upsells, tripwires, all that sort of stuff, super easy in ThriveCart, not so much in my photography CRM. So I wanted to talk about this, but I didn't want to overwhelm you with the tech. So let's put it as simply as possible. Let's think about the minimum viable product for an upsell in your photography business. Let's say that someone books a session with you. You can have a step in your workflow in your CRM, or even just like a checkbox on your checklist of things to do for a client, where after they sign the booking thing and you go and send them the like, hooray, we're booked email, that email can contain a time limited offer for them for any of the kinds of offers that we just talked about, where you give them, let's say 24 hours, if you book this within the next 24 hours, I've got a special offer for you, blah, blah, blah. They've already purchased. So you're not losing the sale of the session, but you are giving them the opportunity to add on to that. And you are giving them enough time to consider whether that's something that they want. It's enough time for them to reach out to you and ask questions so that you can sort of, give them more information so that they can make the right decision for them. I do feel like the upsell, even though the bump offer is a little bit easier to set up from a tech perspective, with a little bit of manual ingenuity, an upsell can actually be the better way to go for a lot of these things. It'll protect you from losing the sale. And in this particular case, when it comes to pre-selling a product, I definitely feel like that should be left until after someone has decided for sure to work with you, signed on the dotted line. Then you can start talking about pre-selling products or, adding different elements to their session. So thus far, we have covered the tripwire, the bump offer, and the upsell. And the sort of sneaky opportunity after an upsell is what's called a downsell. So a downsell is an offer that someone only sees if they say no to your upsell. So let's say that you have an album offer that is your upsell. Somebody books a session with you, you send them an email, you say, hooray, I'm so excited. Here's a questionnaire that I want you to fill out. P.S. I have, one of the most popular products that my clients purchase, or one of my favorite things for clients to purchase, is an album. It's a wonderful way to commemorate your family and blah, blah, blah. So let's say that your upsell offer was for an album, right? It was a 1-day pre-purchase your album and get 30% off discount offer. And the 24 hours goes by and they haven't purchased the album. I would probably leave it be for a little bit. And then I might come back a week later or a couple of weeks before their session. And maybe after giving them some more information about my products and my albums and things like that, I might then come back and a week before the session say, hey, I know you never took me up on that album offer, but albums really are my favorite thing. Maybe it's that you are planning to design your own album. When you get your digital files, you want to put an album together for yourself. I totally understand that. I design albums all day long, and I'd be more than happy to design an album for you and send you the album design with your images at the end of the session. And, the price for that is this. So it's a lower priced offer. Let's say your album cost $500 and the album design is $150. You've already set that anchor, the price, right? You've set that price anchor for an album in their mind. And they know that they missed out on the discount offer. And that can sometimes trigger feelings for people of like, oh man, maybe I did want an album, da da da. This gives them an opportunity a little bit later down the road to say yes, even after they've said no. And downsell offers, when they are, again, aligned and circling around the same message that you were using for your upsell offer, are pretty high converting offers. So if at first you don't succeed, try again is kind of the thought process behind the downsell. You're basically saying, are you sure? And then the final way that you can sort of extend the life of a client and or, make sure that you are getting as much out of that session and that they are getting as much out of that session as possible is to figure out how you're going to book them again in the future. Now, that could be as simple as right after your session, ends with them. So whether it's you deliver all the images and then that's that, or if you're using simple sales, it would be after their gallery closes. If you do in-person sales, it's after you've delivered their products to them. And you send them an email and you say something along the lines of, that was wonderful. I really loved working with you. If you book your next session, for some time within the next year and you book it now, I'll give you 50% off the session fee, or you'll get, an extra $200 in print credit when you do your session. So you're giving them an incentive to book now for a session that's happening farther in the future. That is giving yourself guaranteed income down the road. And you're doing that at sort of the old saying goes like, strike while the iron is hot. They are on this high of like, they had a wonderful session with you. They've already paid you all the money, everything, they're happy. And you're saying, give me a small deposit, basically half the price of the session fee. And then you're locking in for the next year. And that can take this weight off somebody's mind. We all carry around a million things that we intend to do. And so if after working with you, they're like, we are totally going to keep working with her forever, you're just giving them an easy way to make that happen and kind of pre-order it, right? Now, that's one way to do it. And it's certainly a simple thing to set up. My preference, as most of you probably know by now, is to take that a step further. And instead of just inviting them to book the next session, it's actually inviting them into a membership where they are then committing to doing sessions with you on an annual basis. Now, this is not a perfect solution for every business type. It does take some doing to put together a great membership offer and bring people in and set up the payment process and all that sort of thing. But once you do those things, the membership offer tends to convert really, really well. When you have clients who want to have sessions on a regular basis, whether you are a pet photographer, a family photographer, a newborn photographer, a brand photographer, a membership is a great way for your clients to just kind of check photography off of their to-do list and to save themselves the pain of having to pay a large sum of money all at once every so often, right? Instead of doing that, they're just auto charging their credit card once a month, and then once a year, or however you set it up in your business, they're coming back to get their session with you. So if you have a client that's worth $1,000 for a single session and in your normal business, that $1,000 client typically comes back every 2 or 3 years. And they always say something like, oh man, we meant to book with you last year, blah, blah, blah. Time got away from us. So if in 3 years you make $2,000 with them, if they were in a membership over the course of that same amount of time, you would have made $3,000 with them. And you would have had more opportunities to potentially offer them an upsell or a downsell or, any of these other offers that we're talking about. So to wrap up, I just want to remind you that this is not a matter of trying to take advantage, certainly, of our clients. The last thing that we want to do is lose trust with them. But I think that when you are being thoughtful about what it is that a client wants from a session with you, and you think about, what are the sticking points? Is it like there's an upsell opportunity for, you bought this wall gallery, you just paid for the wall gallery. Would you like me to come install that for you? If that's something that you have the time and the bandwidth for and you're good at it, why not monetize that? A lot of photographers offer that sort of thing for free. You can, but you don't have to. And I know that there are plenty of photographers right now who are looking for ways to make their business more profitable. And I think that thinking outside the box and not just trying to constantly hammer on, this is my session, hire me for my session, but thinking about like, if I do get somebody who books me for a session, how can I grow what I'm making on that a bit? That's how you can save yourself a lot of time and heartache and earn some extra money. All right. I hope I've got your wheels turning and you're fired up and ready to go set this up. It's a great thing to do before the busy season gets underway. And if you've got any great ideas to share, I would love for you to come join us in the Facebook group, drop some ideas in there. Let's get a big thread going. I feel like this is one of those a rising tide lifts all ships kind of a thing. Don't keep them to yourself. I would love to hear all about them. And I know everybody else in the community would as well. You guys have a great week.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of This Can't Be That Hard. I'll be back same time, same place next week. In the meantime, you can find more information about this episode, along with all the relevant links, notes, and downloads at thiscan'tbethathard.com/learn. If you like the podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Even better, share the love by leaving a review in iTunes. And as always, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic week.